Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti Om. So Namaste, welcome to our Q&A Satsang. We have a question from Michael. He sent me an email. So let's begin with that, and then we see where we go from there. So Michael says that the mind is resolved. One of our verse in the Vivekachudamani says that the mind is resolved when blustered by this passion toward objects. Its attention is removed from objects and repeatedly placed on the self. So this is the verse. He's quoting the verse. And then his question is, how can one place attention on the self if the self has no location? So the verse does say the mind is resolved when blustered by this passion towards objects. So meaning to say, so you understood the limitation and the values of all apparent objects. You know that they have some sort of utilitarian values, but you understood that fundamentally they don't offer this resolution, this mental, emotional resolution is never possible by the means of acquisition of objects, of gaining of things and accomplishing things. Therefore, the mind is resolved when this passion grows towards objects. It grows by the means of understanding until its attention is removed from objects, naturally removed from objects, meaning to say the mind lose affection, lose interest, obsession towards object, and naturally it removes itself from this object. It's no longer bound to objects, and repeatedly it places itself on the self. So it's a beautiful verse that describes the entire process of nididhyasana, which is controlling, regulating the mind and the sense organs and bring them under control, you know, like the five horses of Krishna, you know, you control the sense organs, you control the mind, you regulate, you don't suppress it. And then what you do with that regulated mind, you make it focusing on the self, contemplate on the self. Repeatedly, you place the mind on the self. So it's all beautifully presented. But then Michael has a question. He says, how can one actually place this attention on the self if the self has no location? And David?
Well, I was thinking it's not an object. The self is not an object. So how do you put yourself, pay attention to something that's not an object?
Yeah. So is it a question that occurs to you as well?
It does now. Thanks, Michael.
Okay. So it is a good question. So how can one keep the mind on the self if the self is not an object? It does not exist in time and place. Therefore, you cannot say, oh, here it is, and boom. You know, oh, I want to meditate on the self. Where is it? It's there. Boom. So there is nothing that we could say this is the self. But the self is the knower, the meditator, the inquirer is the nature of the meditator, the knower, the looker, understand? The seeker. So the nature of the one doing the attention on the self is the self. So therefore, how this mind is going to put attention on the self if the self is its very nature? You understand? So how are we going to do this nididhyasana, Mark?
I was thinking of what Ramana Maharishi says, remain in silence. If the mind stays silent, then we can actually be the self. even though we are the self. Okay. This was my mental response.
Yeah, so this is another hint that we get from the world of yoga. Yoga. Mark, I don't like to speak over you, but what happens is you begin talking and then it freezes, and then again we hear you trying to say something. So I'm gonna carry on and say you gave us some nice room here, nice space to develop your thought, your understanding. So what Mark is saying is that the silence, when the mind is in silence, and then we can experience the self or something until we become the self. We understand. We become focused on the self when the mind is silent. So in the yoga, they often equate the self with emptiness or silence or the rest of thoughts. You know, no objects, nothing being experienced. Samadhi. So in yoga, that is the self. Okay, so but as we know, the self is not an object of experience. Therefore, the absence of thought is by itself an object. Why? Because I can tell, oh, okay, now I am experiencing the absence of thought. So there is me and the experience of samadhi, me and the experience of no mind, no thought. Okay, so therefore that is still a dualistic, approach or relationship between me and the silence. Silence is a great symbol of the self. Okay, there are many beautiful symbols of the self, and the yoga likes to use the silence as its main symbol of the self. Why? Because by bringing the mind, controlling the mind until controlling the thoughts and the sense organs and the sense of actions, the organs of action, and then you gradually you go into that state of silence. So those states of silence feels beautifully, feels great, feels fulfilling, satisfaction and so on. It's ananta, those beautiful moments of silence. But what is the problem with the silence? The silence feels wonderful, and I have been seeking this silence for most of my spiritual life, and I have come to a certain skill of producing that mental state of silence until I got fed up with it. Why? What is the limitation of silence? Is that you feel that you experience the self as the silence. But once you understand that the self can never be experienced and the self cannot be the silence, because the silence is something that is now present, but in the next moment is absent. Therefore, cannot be the self. You understand? So the silence is a great symbol, and it has its spiritual value, because when the mind is silent, it means to say we can experience the reflection of the self in a silent mind and experience this beautiful bliss. If you know that the bliss is coming from your original self as a reflection, and then you are in a good position. You say, okay, I'm enjoying the reflection of myself on my own silent mind. I am the original consciousness. I'm enjoying the reflection of myself on my own silent mind. This is a good place to be, as long as you know that it is your original nature reflect on the silence of your mind. You understand? So the problem is when you believe that the self is the silence, and then you try to grab it, you try to control it, you try to freeze it, to make it permanent, and the silence is never permanent. And again we feel like, oh, I got it, I lost it. I got it, I lost it. I got it, I lost it. So how can one place attention on the self if the self is not an object, if the self has no location? So the self is not located anywhere. So how can I bring, and the scriptures of Vedanta says again and again, bring the mind into the self. Swami Shimayananda used to say that the whole spiritual process, of course, once we come to Vedanta, the whole spiritual process is just about detach, attaching, detaching, attaching, detaching, attaching. And he used to mean like detach your mind from objects of the world and attach it to the self. But yet it leaves us with the same dilemma. So how am I going to attach my mind to the self? Okay, I did a good job. I controlled my mind. I detached it from all the objects. And now I experience this beautiful bliss, this beautiful silence, but it's not permanent. And then the guru says, okay, you have to go and attach it to the self. Otherwise, you did only half of the job. You did half of the job. You detached your mind, you regulate, you controlled, you brought the mind is free now. And now what do I do with it? Okay, so what am I going to do? Attach the mind to the self. But as we know, the self is not an object of attachment. It's not an object of knowledge. So how are we going to do that? So attaching the mind to the self is basically attaching the mind to a symbol of the self, Michael, because the self is not an object of attachment. So when we say attach to the self, attaching to a symbol of the self. Now, there are many symbols of the self. In yoga, in Buddhism, they use different objects of meditation, as symbols of the self. Silence being one of them, peace being one of them, the pranayamas, all kinds of pranayamas, the object of meditation. So we can symbolize the pranas, the vital air, the blow of life, and so on, as the self. We can symbolize love as the self, silence as the self, non-duality as the self. Whatsoever object of experience we can symbolize as the self. But my question to you guys is, what is the best symbol of the self?
Vedanta.
Huh?
Vedanta, knowledge of Vedanta.
So the best symbol of the self, I'm inclined to say that again and again, are the scriptures. Why? First, because the scriptures, they were revealed from the self consciousness revealed, through Ishvara, this scriptural knowledge. So first, it's a direct gift from the self to us, okay? So it was revealed from the self, therefore it's a good symbol of the self. And not only that, it is a body of knowledge, it's a teaching methodology, it's a logic, those Mahavakya's, those declarations of the Upanishad. It's a body, it's a teaching methodology that was revealed to the jiva that has the potential to help or to make the jiva understand that the jiva is the self. So why it's the best symbol of the self? Because it was revealed by the self, and it allows the jiva to realize that the jiva is the self. You understand? Therefore, when we talk in terms of bringing the mind, bringing the attention to the self, we mean to say bring the attention, bring the mind to those logics, to those teachings of Vedanta that serves the purpose to reveal your identity as the self. This is the Vedantic meditation that we do. It's called Nididhyasana. It's a constant contemplation on those declarations, on those teachings, on those logics, okay, that have the potential to reveal to an individual his own nature as the self. You see, you're not contemplating on the self, you're not contemplating on silence, which is just a reflection of consciousness in a sattvic mind. You are not contemplate on Ishvara, on Brahman, on Krishna. All of those are symbols of the self. In India, for example, when we come within the Vedic culture, when we talk about Upasana Yoga, what is the object of meditation in India, in the Vedic culture? Is the Lord. You understand? In India, everybody meditates in a form of the Lord. Saguna Ishwara is a deity, you know, or Ishwara as Nirguna Ishwara, Brahman. You either meditate on Brahman or you meditate on an image of one of the lords of this universe. Those are representatives. The real Lord is Ishwara. I tend to say so. You can meditate within the culture, the Vedic culture. You can meditate on Krishna, on any one of these gods, these Vedic gods, you know. You can pick Krishna, Vishnu, or anyone, Ganesh. Okay, depends on what you want. Okay, so you have your symbol, you have your favorite deity, and then you do your pujas, you do your meditations, you think about, you know, Krishna or whatever God. Okay, this is one kind. The other one is when you begin understanding that the Vishnu, Krishna, Shiva, and all these gods, they are just different aspects of the one single Lord called Ishwara, the Lord of Nitya, the Lord of this order of reality. There is Ishwara, and then he is represented by numberless gods that serves the purpose of concede to the devotees what they want. The devotees want things, they want benefits, they want punya, and they have to go to their gods, and the gods are going to facilitate. But we should know that everything is coming from Ishwara, the one single Lord of the universe that operates through these deities. Okay, so we can have our favorite deities, we can meditate on Ishwara, we can meditate on Brahman, which is Nirguna Ishwara, Nirguna Brahman. You understand? The substratum of Ishwara. Okay, so in the Vedic culture, we meditate on a deity, Ishwara or Brahman. Okay, so when we come to meditate on Brahman, and then we need the scriptures of the Upanishad, the scriptures of Vedanta, because only in Vedanta we come to the point of understanding that the Jiva Atma is Paramatma, Jiva Atma is Brahman, okay? And then we need to meditate on those teachings, on those declarations, on those mantras that reveal the identity of Jiva as Paramatma, as Brahman. So the best, the most direct, the most powerful way to bring the mind to the self, bring the mind, educate the mind to think of the self, is using the scriptures, because the scriptures are or is the best symbol of the self, because it comes from the self and it reveals the self by removing one's ignorance or reflecting, howsoever we want to see, reflecting to the Jiva his nature as Brahman. You understand, Michael? Does anybody?
Yes.
Does anybody have any doubts about this?
So you're saying that I should pick out a particular verse and always be contemplating that verse or different verses?
Yeah. So the Vedanta works in 3 stages, Michael. The first one is listening, Shravana. Okay, we need to listen to it, read, watch the videos, and listen to the audios, and then reading the book. This is all part of what we call Shravana. You are just submitting your mind to the teachings, okay? This is very important. The more we do it extensively, the more you're going to develop a larger or bigger picture of this vision, Vedantic vision, you understand? Because you expose your mind and you move. There is so much knowledge firing and clicking in your mind. So you start developing that. It does not need to mean to say that you do the first stage and then for 1 year, 2 years, and then you go into the second stage. No, because even as we doing our Shravana, so we begin reflecting, contemplating, on those teachings. So the second stage, which is something that overlaps the first stage, it is contemplation, reflection. This is the stage in which we go through these teachings, and we make sure that we have no longer our doubts. That's called manana. Manana, we are just trying to go back, revising everything I have been studying, listening, etc. And then I keep clearing the doubts until I know, okay, I understood it. I'm clear. I mean, I have no doubts about this logic and this and that and this verse. So I understood the explanation from the teacher and so on. So this is manana. Okay. So the third stage is the stage called Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is this Vedantic meditation of contemplating on everything you have heard and reflect, because now what does Nididhyasana do? It needs to convert this clear intellectual understanding into direct knowledge. Understand? So you need to convert this clear intellectual understanding about the logic as presented by the teacher. You need to convert that into direct and immediate self-knowledge. So that has to become a certainty of knowledge, a conviction, a firm conviction of who and what you are. You understand? So that is Nididhyasana. That is again and again bringing the mind, bring the attention to the self, meaning to say, bring the attention to those teachings, that you have heard, you had reflect, and now you need to meditate, contemplate upon those teachings. You understand the distinction of these three stages, Michael? Okay, so we listen, we reflect, we clear doubt, and then in the silence space of our bedroom, or in your meditation room, or during our walking on the woods, or whatever, what happens is that this knowledge starts growing in one's mind, and when you see it remains in the background, it starts taking over your mind, and that is a constant application or contemplation, until this knowledge is really completely clear, until it starts to say, wow, this works, and it's true, and it's I am Brahman, and so on. Okay? So bring the mind to the self is what we call Nididhyasana. It's the Vedantic meditation, and the Vedantic meditation is not about creating silence. It's about contemplating again and again, or applying that knowledge, thinking about those logics, those teachings, until they are no longer just academic knowledge, intellectual knowledge, but they become a certainty of knowledge, self-knowledge, direct knowledge. Okay? Does anybody anything to contribute?
I was looking, in this book that I've got, which is like the symbols, the myths and symbols of Indian art. And it occurred to me that it's very rare, if at all, that you see a symbol of Brahman. That, you see lots of symbols of Shiva, for instance, and you might see some of Vishnu, but you see, so those are the trilogy, if you will, of gods or deities. You rarely see one of Brahman, and yet you're talking about really contemplating or reflecting or using a symbol to personify. And I never see Ishwara in the symbols of Indian culture. So I'm wondering if you have any comments about.
Well, that's why I often say that if you want to meditate, so you can meditate on your prana, in your breath. You can meditate on your thoughts. A lot of people in the West meditate on their thoughts. You understand? They keep watching the thoughts until the thought begins calming down. They are obsessed with their thinking process, and they want to experience some gaps between thoughts. You understand? So that it has some spiritual value. But the most powerful value we find in Vipassana yoga is to bring the mind to this factor that the West has excluded from their spirituality, which is God, which Buddhism has rejected God as well, you know. So if we bring God, we have tremendous benefit, because only when we bring God and we begin to develop this understanding between me and God. And I know, and everybody in India knows, that in order to accomplish anything in life, we need a help from the Lord, you know, whatsoever Lord, Ganesh, or anyone. Okay, if I want health, I go to one God. If I want wealth, I go to another God, you know, and so on. So everybody knowing in India that there is this factor called Ishwara, without which, you know, our efforts are almost like helpless. You understand? So they meditate on the Lord. So Lord, please, you know, facilitate my efforts. I'm doing my best and I'm keeping you in mind, you know. So please, and manipulate the field or conspire in my favor so that I'm a good devotee. I keep thinking of you and so on. Lord, I know that everything here is you. So this attitude has tremendous power, not only calming the mind, but reducing the arrogance of the ego of the individual. In the West, people say, no, I'm the doer and I'm the go-getter and so on. And nobody thinks in terms of God, which is, you know, the reality. We are powerless in accomplish anything if we don't understand that there is an infinity of other factors that's called Daivan, which is another name for Ishwara, the sum of all factors that contribute to the results of your actions on a moment to moment to moment. You understand? So if we want to meditate, it's better to meditate on a symbol of God. And we begin with a symbol such as Krishna. You take a deity and you say, okay, I have my deity. And now Krishna then becomes what? The symbol of Ishwara for me. You understand? So it's a little bit more dense. It's a little bit more dense. I'm personifying Ishwara as an entity, as a divinity. You understand? I'm personifying, I'm grossifying Ishwara. So when the mind becomes more subtle, the mind is able to understanding the vision, the Karma Yoga vision of Ishwara is a very, very refined one. And most of the devotees cannot really grasp, cannot develop these eyes and with the ability to see Ishwara. And how are you going to see Ishwara? In everything. You understand? In everything you're going to see Ishwara, because you understood that Ishwara is not separate from the creation. It is the efficient, intelligent cause, it is the energetic cause, it is the material, physical cause, and it is the manifestation. The whole universe is the Lord. So developing this vision, it requires an even subtler mind. Once the mind is that subtle, and then it can meditate, brings the mind to Ishwara as the Lord. And how so? Everything is the Lord. The Lord is the one that gives the result. It's the one who digests my food, cooks my food, and everything is the Lord. And that kind of mind embedded in Ishwara, you know, it's a much finer meditation than just taking a symbol of Ishwara, whatsoever symbol. Okay, I took my mouse is the symbol of the Lord. So it's a little grosser, but at least serves the purpose of bring my mind to one pointedness, and I'm pointing my mind to one symbol, and I'm associate that symbol with God. That is powerful, okay? Because we understood that without God, I mean, our life is waste, because life gives us God so that we can realize God and then transcend God to realize Brahman as the substratum of God, Jiva, and the world. You understand? But we need to understand our relationship with God. So we begin with a symbol such as Krishna, and then we move to Ishwara that is not symbolized. As you said, there is no symbol. Why? Because Ishwara is everything, is the cosmos, it's the universe. You understand? And it's not only the physical, material appearance of the universe, but it is intelligent cause. You know, it is everything. It is the intelligent cause, the energy, the material, and the universe. So this requires a more fine mind. And then from there, we can move into contemplate on, on Brahman, the unmanifest that somehow pervades the entire manifestation of names and forms. So now we are shifting, the mind is even more fine, it can contemplate on Brahman. And again, you're going to contemplate in Brahman how? Because for as long as you have a deity and you have Ishwara as the universe, you have some reference to meditate upon. You understand? Oh yeah, it's the cosmos, it's the universe, it's the tree, it's the ocean, it's the mountains, it's everything. You understand? But now I move to Brahman. Brahman is the most subtle of the subtle. There is no way we can somehow grab and define and objectify it. So, and then we need to do our Vedantic meditation called Nididhyasana. Understand? There are no symbols for Brahman. There are no symbols like gross symbols like to Ishwara. So the mind needs to be further refined to move into a contemplation, into Nirguna Ishwara, and we do that by bringing the mind into the statements or the Mahavakyas or the declarations of the Upanishads that reveals the nature of the Jiva as Brahman.
It really makes a lot of sense, and thank you for that. It just that helps understand why we don't see symbols of Brahman or Ishwara. And it brings up another question for me. Is just is it worth? Is it? I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but I'm thinking, boy, it'd be great to have a guided meditation.
Guided meditation.
A guided meditation. There's a, I mean, I remember doing it with Ramji, and he did some meditation, and I'm thinking, wow, maybe I should look on his website for meditations. Or what do you think of the idea of having a guided meditation? I mean, there's just a plethora of them out there, but having a Vedantic or one that you're talking about.
Well, I'm totally allergic to it. I have never even tried or attempt to do it. And every time I was there around Ramji, that comes a session of guided meditation, I would walk away because I hate that, So it is okay, because if you follow those thoughts, the thoughts are going to direct the mind to somehow more and more relaxation, and you begin pulling the mind. So, and you need those voices that helps you, but I find it disturbing to some people and to myself. To tell the truth, when I used to do my initial satsangs in 2011, 2012, before I met Ramji, I saw everybody doing guided meditations, and I said, so I should be fashionable as well. I have to come up with sort of guided meditation. And we have a small sangha in Olympia, Washington, and I was playing a little bit, more or less in the style of Moji, And I was experimenting, and I was getting the feedback from people, and some people were saying that they like, some people they say that they feel disturbed because on those days we were looking for those deep space of silence, and the voice of the one conducting the guided meditation may be a disturbance for some, you understand? So overall, I don't do it because I find it belongs to a preliminary stage. Ramji, when does that, usually is when he goes into the chapter 6 of the Gita, when it talks about Vipassana Yoga meditation. And then he begins with a guided meditation that he learned from Dayananda and so on, that you start looking, analyzing, and investigating, and get in contact with the physical body, and then from the foot you start going up, and then you start losing, and then you start identifying with something subtler and subtler, and then in the end you try to identify with consciousness, you know. So it's all okay, it's valid, okay. But again, you don't want to get too attached to any kind of a stick, you know, that, but it can be used as long as you use for some time and then you just drop it, you understand? So it's more powerful if you develop this ability to relax your mind on your own. If you don't, so you can try to use some of these guided meditations. I guess if you go into the shop of Eden, you may find some guided meditations in there, you know, in this. There are so many guided meditations in the internet. Okay, but it's not, well, I mean, in Vedanta, we say that meditation, I heard a few of our best teachers, such as Paramarthananda, explaining that meditation is a concession. Whenever you see some meditation in some Upanishads here and there, or some of these more recent texts from Shankaracharya, he say it's a concession to ignorance. You understand? Because meditation is not really part of Vedanta. Even in the chapter 6 of the Gita, it's a concession to the yogis, you know, the people who have an attachment to doing this exercise to produce silence. You understand? So our meditation in truth is nididhyasana, is contemplation on this knowledge. So it's not to say that Upasana Yoga, meditating on a symbol of God, does not have any value, but it's something that's it's a little bit preliminary to Vedanta, you know, to do some sort of silent meditations or guided meditations to take you into a space of deeper relaxation. So again, I'm going to mention something very simple here. I did the whole path when I began 40 years ago. I had to go through the whole thing. I had a lot of karma, as some of you have heard. And with Osho Rajneesh, oh, there goes David. Let me wait for him to come back because I'm talking mostly to him. So when I began with Osho Rajneesh. I had a lot of tension, a lot of stress, a lot of rajas, a lot of depression, a lot of traumas. And the Osho Rajneesh, he say, oh, the only remedy I have is meditation. And then here it is. There are 108 meditations. Go and choose and experiment and play with it. In India Ashram, we had all kinds of meditations being presented, different days, different times of the days, and so on. We are playing with meditations, but I was not able to sit and doing, for example, Zazen or Vipassana meditation because I was too afflicted with rajas and tamas. You understand? So I had to do a more gross form of meditation, which was more like physically oriented, you know, active and so on, just that I could release tension doing some sort of bioenergetics or some things that he combined with some techniques for 1 hour, so that after releasing some tension, I could experiment 10, 15 minutes of a more quiet mind. I did that for years, many years. And then I came a point that I could directly, without having to shake my body, and this, I could go and do Vipassana. And I had a great appreciation for Vipassana, because by doing that very quickly, by observing my prana, and my prana would become more and more shallow, more and more quiet, and my mind would calm down with my breath and mind. So just to make it short, I could go and directly deal with this meditation that was much more fine than everything I did before, called Vipassana, okay? Pranayama, sort of pranayama. So I did that. And then down the road, I met the words of Nisargadatta Maharaj and his teachings, his instructions on meditation, because he was a meditator. And he used to say, you must meditate, you must have samadhi yoga, you must go deep into silence. What was his meditation? It was much more subtle than Vipassana. Vipassana, we are meditating on the prana. Him, it was like, hold on to the sense feeling, I am, I exist. Look at that. Hold on to the sense feeling, I am, I exist. So this sort of meditation, being so subtle, it was not for everybody. Around Papaji, everybody was not relating to this meditation. I immediately clicked to me, and I started going to this meditation. Very, very fine, because you will bring the mind to what? To the sense feeling, thought feeling, I exist, I am. It's the I before the I associates itself with its relations, its association, its stories, and so on, and blah, blah, blah. So that is a powerful meditation, but very subtle. So now, the point I'm trying to make here is, when I start getting to this meditation, there were times that my mind was too stressed out. I couldn't meditate according to the instructions of Nisargadatta Maharaj. So what I used to do, David, I used to do Vipassana for 10, 15 minutes. You understand? I used to do Vipassana first, and then the mind would become more subtle, more quiet. And then when the mind was already a little more subtle, and then I would go into my I am meditation as prescribed by Nisargadatta Maharaj. Just to give you an example, you understand? So if I would be attached to my meditation, I would be doing those meditations of Osho Rajneesh, and then later on I will be attached to Vipassana. I know people who does Vipassana for the rest of their life, you understand? But no, Vipassana serves the purpose to prepare, refine my mind to go into a more profound, more subtle meditation, such as the one of holding on to the sense, thought, feeling, I exist. Okay? So one day, I stood up from this meditation of Nisargadatta Maharaj that was producing so much silence, so much bliss, so much peace. I walked away from all of that in total frustration. Why? Because I realized that it was just an experience, and it was bound by time. It has a beginning and an end, and it was again and again demanding my effort. The moment I would suspend my effort, my mind would change again. When I understood that, it was before I got into Vedanta, but I got into a book that was making a clear distinction between self-knowledge and self-experience. Okay? So what I'm trying to say, David, is that we do what it takes, you understand, to refine the mind. If we need to do kirtan, for example, we do kirtan. I know you appreciate kirtans, for example. If you like kirtans, if you like to do certain pujas and so on, so be it, do it. But then when the mind is more calm, we don't go to the pub to enjoy ourselves and relate and call our girlfriend and this. And when the mind is more calm, it's more fit for Vedanta. And then we need to feed it with the scriptural knowledge rather than enjoying a peaceful mind. Because our goal is not peaceful mind. Our goal is what? Self-knowledge. So we do what we need to do to prepare the mind, to bring the mind, to create the mental environment so that I can come and do my stud, my contemplation, my shravana, my manana, and my nididhyasana. Does it make sense, David? You understand my point? I'm not trying to discourage you not to do guided meditation. You do what helps you to produce more and more mental balance, mental purity, okay? And then as you develop that, don't waste it enjoying yourself in the world. Use that sattvic mind to exposing it to the knowledge of the scriptures, you know, because only the knowledge is going to resolve the mind. You understand?
I think I think it's a very positive message in what you're saying, and it's all a journey, and it really even wraps into karma yoga, and doing karma yoga lays or creates the fertile ground for a sattvic, for sattvic, and then by practicing karma yoga is another. It's a preparatory. It prepares you and prepares that it helps you to prepare for jnana yoga.
Totally. Karma yoga is the best purifier of the mind. We say that jnana yoga is the best purifier, but as a first stage, karma yoga is the greatest yoga. That's why we prescribe karma yoga rather than upasana yoga. That's why upasana yoga is just an alternative. Upasana yoga serves, if the mind is pure, the heart is pure, there is a good balance. But for example, the mind is lacking what? It's lacking one-pointedness, focus. Upasana yoga meditation is wonderful to regulate the mind and bring it into focus. You understand? So it's very, very good. So, but that's the main purpose of meditation, is to create one-pointedness, focus to the mind. Because when we go into our subtle and subtle aspects of our nididhyasana, we need a very focused mind to stay through that fine and subtle contemplation for a period of time without having the mind dispersing, and jumping from one thought into another. So that is the main gift of meditation, to bring the mind to one-pointedness. There is another side of another question from Michael, connect to this one, I believe, and he say, oh no, it's not really, but it is. How can Ishvara, the creator, be a creator and the macrocosmic causal body if Ishvara is an effect of Brahman illuminating Maya? So let me see if I understand it. How can Ishvara be a creator God, the macrocosmic causal body, if Ishvara is an effect of Brahman? So Jesus, again, we could stay another hour around this question, Michael, because there are very fine distinctions between Maya and Ishvara. You understand? So, and depending on where you are at the scripture, so they can say that Maya controls Ishvara, and some other, from another angle or perspective or context, will say that Ishvara controls Maya. You understand? So Maya and Ishvara, generally speaking, for example, Ramji likes to present it more or less like the same thing, okay, like two sides of the same coin. But when we go a little bit deeper into Vedanta, we see that there are certain distinctions there, okay? So Maya says, how can Ishvara be a creator, causal body, if Ishvara is an effect of Brahman? So Ishvara is an effect of Brahman. Actually, you're not talking about Maya here, you're talking about Brahman. Ishvara is an effect of Maya. You understand? So, Brahman is not an effect in the sense that it does not cause anything. What brings about Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat is Maya. You understand? So we from Vedanta, we understood that there is a factor, a principle between the world and Brahman. And this factor, this principle is called Maya. How we know that there is such a thing? Because the scripture says clearly that the self of Brahman is akarta. It does not do anything. And it provides us with a lot of logic and a lot of analogies to describe it. So Brahman, consciousness, awareness, does not do anything. But yet we have a universe. We have the world. We have our planet. You understand? So if we have the planet, if we have the universe, the cosmos, and Brahman does not do anything because the Brahman is the akarta, nirvikaraha. It does not change, it does not do anything. Yet it is the substratum of everything. Yet nothing happens without this conscious existence. Limitless conscious existence. It is limitless conscious existence that does not create the world. What creates the world is Maya. So we know that there is Maya because nothing exists without a cause. And Brahman is not the cause. You understand? So therefore, we understood and we trust the scripture. The scriptures say there is Maya. Maya is a power relate to and inherent to consciousness, which is not consciousness, but it's not really apart from consciousness, because even the world, which is a manifestation of Maya, is not apart from the world. Maya is a power that produces this superimposition that appears to have its own life, but its life is conceded from Brahman, from Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, limitless existence consciousness. You understand? So Maya is what brings about Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. Okay? So how can Ishvara be a creator in the macro-causal body if Ishvara is an effect of Brahman illuminating Maya? Brahman shines in Maya, and that's a fact. Brahman shines in Maya. So Maya is this original Prakrit. It is the most subtle energy field, okay? Constituted by the three guna, the three energies are there. And then consciousness, when it shines in this Prakrit, this fine, extremely fine, subtle energy, it brings about what? It brings about Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, okay? So Ishvara is an effect of Brahman illuminating Maya. Beautiful. It's true. Ishvara is an effect of Brahman in association with Maya or reflecting Maya. When it reflects in Maya, it brings Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. Okay? So how can Ishvara be a creator and macrocosmic body if Ishvara depends on Maya and depends on Brahman? It depends on consciousness, depends on Maya for its own existence. Therefore, how can Ishvara be the creator? So, Ishvara is the creator in the sense that Ishvara is the one that has the intelligence, the knowledge, intelligence to manipulate these three energies and configure these energies in numberless, infinite numbers of different objects, you understand? To create this pluralistic universe made out of gold and gold alone. Consciousness is the gold. Ishvara, Maya is the power that brings the basic elements, the three gunas, and the element, and then Ishvara is the intelligent, this knowledge intelligent that has the ability to mix it all together, this basic, the three gunas, the subtle and the dense elements, and then it produces this physical material universe, and it sustains and holds it by its laws, and it has the power to recycle it as a replacement to the world, destroy it, because everything that is created is destroyed. Everything that is assembled, it is assembled. You know? Everything is here is constantly being recycled from energy, which is the macrocosmic causal body of Ishvara. The macrocosmic is Ishvara, unmanifest, or we can say it's Maya, unmanifest. You say, or Brahman in his deep sleep, Pralaya, howsoever we want to look and see it. Okay, so out of this unmanifest, the manifest comes, and that is due to Ishvara. What is Ishvara? Ishvara is this self-conscious being or principle, which is not embodied. It's not embodied, or we could say it is embodied as the universe. The universe is the body, but Ishvara in its essence is this self-conscious being, constituted by what? Constituted by pure knowledge and intelligence. And how we know that Ishvara is this pure knowledge? Because the entire universe is made out of pure knowledge, intelligence. It's amazing. Scientists, they keep looking and say, wow, you know, everything here is intelligently designed. Everything here is perfect. And everything is kept in balance, in harmony. Until what? Until Ishvara brings about the human jivas. The human jivas come into the picture, and then we begin break the balance of Ishvara's creation. Isn't it a funny game? Everything is beautiful and perfect until we come. And we come with the intelligence, with this subtle body that allows us to understand and know our nature as Brahman, and then we can get out of the game. But yet it has a huge risk involved than being a human jiva. I mean, Ishvara, when he brought about the human jiva, he took a big risk. He said, oh my God, my manifestation is so beautiful, so perfect. Everybody is following Dharma. There is no creature violating or doing anything wrong. You know, it's the order is beautiful. And now I'm going to create these individuals, and I'm going to give them the power to decide whether they're going to follow these natural laws and live in harmony or violate these laws. And I'm going to be constituting them out of vasanas. I need vasanas because they have preference, likes and dislikes. Yeah? So now we're in a game that the jivas, you know, although it has the potential to realize their own true identity, nature as Brahman, they have the potential to mess up Ishvara's creations, you know, here and there. Yes, Luciana?
Just I was trying to understand, so I was trying to organize my thoughts here, just to see if I understand, if I understood. So Brahman will be kind of the source that goes through Maya. Maya projects the world, and then Ishvara will be the manager from the whole situation. It's more or less.
That is okay understanding, yeah. To begin with, yeah. So Ishvara is the boss, the manager, you know, the director, the orchestrator. Is the lawgiver, the giver of the results of everybody. It is this. He knows. It's all knowing. It's pure knowledge. It's pure sattva. The essence of Ishvara is pure sattva. But what is the problem with Ishvara? Ishvara, in order to produce the universe, he cannot keep the universe just as a thought in the mind of God, you know? In order to manifest this universe, he needs to bring about what? Rajas and Tamas. And then when it brings rajas and tamas, oh, now I have all the ingredients so that I can project my beautiful cosmos, my beautiful universe. And then poof. And then down the road, Ishwara sings. So now I have this beautiful world with all these creatures, all kinds of creatures, and they keep changing, and some of them go in extinction. Some of them keeps modifying with time, with different climate. And I have all of that. But, oh my God, nobody understands that I'm here, that I'm the Lord. I need to create some beings there that can recognize that I am the Lord of this universe, that they can develop this understanding. You understand? So in order to create these human jivas, it needs to refine the subtle body of the jivas in general, refine until the jiva becomes what? Sentient, self-conscious. You understand? So, but in order to do that, to have this subtle body that reflects consciousness to become sentient, you know, it needed to bring about inclusions of rajas and tamas. You understand? And rajas and tamas in the subtle body of the human jivas, which is a must so that the subtle body can hold itself and shine with sentience. So rajas and tamas is going to affect the ability of the intellect of the human jiva to really understanding what's going on, understanding the laws and live in harmony, because immediately when the jiva, understand I am and I know that I am, immediately he identifies with the physical body. The other creatures do not have that problem, identifies, and then the human jiva feels insecure, vulnerable, afraid, and immediately it goes crazy for number one human pursuit, security. I want this to protect, to secure, and so naturally the jiva, the moment this self-consciousness, this sentience occurs, it identifies the body as the body, feels insecure, feels vulnerable, and goes for security. And then once it establishes security, it goes for what? Goes for pleasures, and then from pleasures it may grow to understand that there is God, there is a Lord that keeps everything here in the creation functioning, and then it develops a relationship with a symbol of something like God. This is the third pursuit, the pursuit of God, until down the road, very rare individuals understand not only God, that there is a God, but understanding that freedom is only possible by the mean of the understanding. What is this consciousness shining in my mind? You understand? And then the jiva came all the way to the very last pursuit, human pursuit, with the pursuit of self-knowledge. You understand? But the problem of Ishvara is, in order to create that possibility of development, it's at the time it has to give the individual jiva the free will, the freedom to choose, to the way one directs one's life. If I'm just living for securities and pleasures, I'm wasting my life. I'm not contributing. I'm damaging the environment. I'm hurting other people, other creatures, other beings, other trees and forest. So, it's an unavoidable price that Ishvara, or risk Ishvara, has to take to bring about this phenomenon called the human jiva. And we see that it's a huge price tag attached to our humanity, because we have the potential to understand God and understand our nature as that which is the substratum of God, but we have the potential to destroy the universe if we are really, really, really ignorant and we become 100% materialistic. Okay? Michael, as I said, we could talk more about that, maybe in another occasion. You feel free to explore, because there are a lot of subtleties about the difference between Maya and Ishvara that we could explore a little bit, but it is a profound and very subtle conversation. Okay, I think it was a very nice question, very nice session. Thank you, Michael, for your questions. And does anybody else have anything else to say or mention? Again, I mean, these meetings of ours, they tend to be profound because somehow that's my style, you know. I don't stay much on the periphery. I tend to go more into the depths of the meaning of these teachings and so on. So it's something that we can make use of listening to these teachings again and again and again, and until we look through, and then we say, oh, I still have a doubt here, and then I write my doubt and so on, you know. So it's something that we can listen more than once. Okay, I want to thank you all for your appreciation. I want to thank you all for your contributions, financial contributions. They have been very important, great support to myself. And we're gonna meet again soon, next Monday. Ishwara willing, of course. Huh? Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you again. We meet again soon.
Thank you, Arlindo.
Thank you.
Orlando.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.